Greetings, I'm Shad, and in this episode of Functional Fandom, we're going to be testing a very classic trope in not only just fantasy, but this also appears in so many different movies, and it's the trope of shooting an arrow, but with a rope tied to it for any number of reasons. Will it even work? Is this actually something that you could probably do? And we're testing this with a proper 100-pound warbow here, and we're trying to make this as like a fair test representation as possible. So we found some great, like it's strong, naturally made, you know, actual rope, okay? But it's very thin rope, very light. And so out of any type of rope, this one should impact the arrow the least because it's so thin and light. But I think this would still hold the weight of a person. This is like really good, strong stuff, okay? Get in close and have a look at, this is some good rope, right? If this arrow has trouble flying through the air with this type of rope tied to it, imagine how much trouble it would have with a thicker, heavier rope, okay? And so you can kind of extrapolate and get an idea based on the test that we're going to do. The trope of shooting an arrow with rope tied to it, it's done in so many movies, right? And it's usually to get it lodged, usually in wood or something, okay? So people legitimately swing from it, get pulled up from it, sometimes there's a handhold and things. Is that even possible? Will it stick in? Will it break? And if it sticks in, how strongly? Let's get to the first test. So part of the issue that we're going to face, which is not addressed in so many movies, is the fact that the likelihood of the rope getting tangled, because what we want, and we see this with like harpoon guns and things, the rope is tied on the gun so specifically that it unravels perfectly evenly as it shoots. But we don't really see this in movies. In movies, it's just assumed that the rope is fine. It's just there and it shoots. Because if this hits like a bit of a knot or something as it launches, and instead of just pulling on a thin strand of rope as it progressively flies into the air, and it needs to pull on a larger clump of rope that's much more heavy like this, that's going to yank the arrow down and stop it in its flight completely. I think that is going to be one of the biggest limitations that we're going to see. And this rope right here is mostly untangled, but it's not perfectly. It's not like it's wrapped on a harpoon rope. But like if this was one of the situations where an adventurer just quickly, rope, tie to arrow, shoot, okay, they don't have time to unravel rope perfectly. And this rope is far less tangled than a lot of ropes would be if you just had it on your person. Granted, it's actually a fairly long one, so I'm going to try and just put it down in a fairly even way to help it unravel gradually as I shoot, and I need to grab one end of it. Okay, now the other big thing or problem with this concept of shooting an arrow with rope tied to it, let's say perfect situation, you can shoot it, the arrow stays attached, it lands in the target, and then you want to swing from it, support your weight on it and everything. Fixing the rope to the arrow in such a way that it wouldn't just rip off the arrow is a big problem. Most people just tie it around, but in actual reality, if you wanted the most secure way for this to be attached, you'd probably need a hole through the arrow and loop the rope through it. But we'll see, because I'm going to wrap this up with a very generous wrapping, okay? We're going to do a pretty big one, which will create a lot of friction and attachment to the rope. Are we ready? Let's do this. All right, that's almost exactly as I predicted. It shot, right? And as soon as it hit a knot over here that couldn't unravel properly, the entire weight of the rest of the rope just pulled the arrow to a complete standstill. And how far did I even get that? Like, let's just compare this with a normal arrow, okay? So let's just shoot a normal arrow to compare distance here. Don't worry, we'll try the test again, but we have already found the biggest flaw with this trope, almost to the point where I'm not sure how plausible it is. But ready? Just this one right here. I don't know how far that is, but that was fun. I'm going to shoot another one. It's always fun shooting long range. I enjoy it. I'll try and get a cleaner release, because distance is always an interesting thing. All right, we've got my measuring wheel here. Let's actually see how far the arrow shot with the most generous circumstances we could get. Really light, thin rope, okay? completely unspooled, so there was no knots that it would get caught on. And with all that, there was still so much drag on the arrow that it shot, let's have a look, 20.4 meters. Let's compare that to one of the unrestricted shots. So 112 meters to these areas here. And so with just this setup, it's interesting how much further different setups and warbows can shoot, because I know there are other warbows that could easily shoot 200 meters, right? But anyway, we can still do an accurate comparison with the rope compared to these. Same arrows, same bow. 20 meters versus 112. Now, I have shot arrows from that bow up to 150 easy, and so actually we are shooting uphill as well, that'll restrict it. Have a look, ready? This is what happened. We just got a tangled mess now of rope. Oh, this is horrible. Like, ugh. This is a mess. I'm wanting to try and untangle as much length as I can now to get a shot where it won't hit a knot and just be dragged down by all this rope together. But look, oh, this is such a mess now. Okay, so we want to try this again. And this time we've unraveled a length of rope just with even this. See it lying on the ground? Completely unraveled. There should be no real big, pullback with this light rope, just to see how far an arrow will shoot with a shorter piece of rope that's wholly unraveled in the most charitable interpretation of this test as we can do. So let's give it a go. Trying to get a clean release without the rope tangling up. Gosh, honestly, how would people be able to do this with the arrow on the inside? Like seriously, if the arrow's on this side, right, the rope would need to be sliding through. I have to lower it quickly and hopefully it wouldn't get caught on the bow. I think having it on the outside gives it much better chances of not getting tangled. Let's give this a go. That's interesting. Almost the whole length of the rope that we had. This is the end, okay. But wow, did that pull on it. Like, we're not even getting a fifth of the length of a normal shot. All right, so I'm just gonna say 20 meters versus 120, because I can easily hit 120 with these at a good shot without shooting uphill. And so, is that like with a really light rope, even from a warbow, but granted, again, these are heavy arrows, so I think we might get the similar results, even if we shot it from a 70-pound bow. 20 meters, is that the functional, generous distance that you could effectively shoot an arrow with a rope tied to it? Let me just try this one more time, see how far it goes, without it hitting the shaft. I reckon that went further that time. Could you bring me the measuring wheel?
Same distance, I reckon.
You reckon same distance?
Yeah,
well, right here, reset, and let's find out. It's totally the drag on the arrow. Like even a light rope like this, tremendous drag. So this time, 25 meters. I reckon that if you push it, you could probably reach 30 meters. And that's the most generous kind of thing with such a light rope, even on a warbow. Granted, there are much more powerful warbows that can shoot further. And so if you're being super generous, really powerful long-range bow, 40 meters? But that is not very far. And that's the thing, in movies and stuff, the arrows are usually never, held back by the rope. I think that is completely debunked.
Thanks for visiting the Shadlands, the place to find quick and easy to watch sword-related content. This video was a supercut or clip from a larger Shadiversity video. If you'd like to see the full-length video, please click on the provided links, and I hope to see you in the future.